you are ready, we can start. Yes, I give floor to the first proposition team speaker. Ilaria, please.
Yes. Everybody's ready?
Yeah.
Dear judges, I am here to tell you that I am never ever been more proud to propose. The motion is, this believes that the feminist movements should support organizations that explicitly exclude men. For example, sororities or all-female startups or female-only networking groups. I would like to start by defining the term feminist movements. These are movements that fight for equity for all women, so the possibility for all women to have their capabilities valued by our day's society and to have the possibility to actually have a place, have a role in our society. We support the intersectional feminism, that is a feminism that supports all minorities. This kind of feminism is the most approved by society, and it is also the most diffused one. Why? Because it actually allows women to have their value expressed in our modern day society. So, they should be valued and respected as men. In fact, in our today's society, we see a prominent influence of men in almost every role existent. But we also see that women do not have that kind of presence and that kind of possibilities. So in order for us to build possibilities for all women, we should cut out roles for them that are just for them, in order to make the society understand that they can really cover these roles, that they are capable of covering roles that were originally associated with men. This is a rite of passage. The movement that we are supporting, what the Proposition House is supporting, is a rite of passage. It has been postponed for centuries, but now is inevitable. The only real way to achieve a better position for all women in society is actually to cut them their own roles and to give them businesses that are women-centered. And this is why in a moment, I'm going to propose our team line, that is inclusivity, public image, and backlash. But before that, I will get the kind of information.
Are you excluding men in general because feminism is the equal opportunities for women and men?
What we're saying is that we want these equal opportunities, but in order for us to reach equality in our society, we have to cut roles that are only for women in order to make understand the society that women can do what was considered only to be a man's job. We are not excluding men in whole and all. We are cutting women the possibility to prove themselves, to actually have a role in our society, to be valued, to be respected, and to have the same and equal rights as men. So, going on to my first argument, that is inclusivity. So to actually have the inclusivity and the equality and the equity that the side proposition wants and that is fighting to obtain, we have to allow all of the groups, all of the women to avenge themselves. And how are they going to do that? They are going to have to prove themselves to the society. They are going to be able to have their own businesses that will be female-centered and that will actually get them out of the situation of disparities in which they have been confined due to the centuries and the mentality that was diffused long ago. So by sustaining these organizations and actually giving women a possibility to have these women-centered environments, we will actually grant them the possibility to be self-sufficient, not to be dependent on a man, not to have their work be underestimated anymore. So we could actually create awareness in the society. We would actually make everyone understand that women can, if only they were given the possibility to actually do. A clear example of this that I would like to bring is a New York law society in which that was founded by a woman that was actually sexually harassed in her previous job and decided to found this corporation that is only by women and that has by now never lost a lawsuit. This is actually a very significant example because the lawyer ambit has always been considered to be men-centered, but they have demonstrated that women can do it by only giving them the possibility to have their own business, that it was women-centered. They have demonstrated that women are capable, that women can do, that women only have the same rights as men, have the same possibility as men, if only they were given the equity and the possibilities. So going on to my second argument, that is public image. It is actually very important to bring awareness, to bring attention to the society. Society, most of the time, is not aware of what goes on. Society needs to be reminded that the only way to actually make society understand and render society aware is to create a movement that that is reflected upon society, that has impacts on society. And the only way to actually create this kind of movements is to take action, to take a decision, to take a position. In fact, if we do not take a position, we will not really change the society for the better. The only way to really have a change is to take action. If we never take a position, we will never be able to better our society. So, by drawing attention to the feminist movements, to the feminist rights, to the equity, we would actually help the feminist movement to achieve wider goals. So to better the position not only in this moment, but actually even in the future. So we would open a road for the feminist movement to actually pursue that will better the position of women in the centuries that are going to come. So, as I already said, this is a rite of passage. We're not saying that the society should remain like this forever and ever. But in the point that we have come now, it is imperative that we take this action to actually better the society and to give the women the opportunity to really explain themselves, to really make themselves visible and to fight for their own rights. That is what the feminist movement should want. We, as the side proposition, we are the only ones that are really and actually fighting for the feminist movements. We are the only ones that are fighting for the possibility of women to be equal to men and to have the possibility to cover roles that were precluded to them due to the history of our society. So, by changing the society and affecting the public image, we would change the mentality and we will provide the society with a change for the better. In fact, people will see through the startups to these women-only networking sites that women can and that can be self-sufficient, that can make it on their own, and that they can have their own businesses. So that is why I'm so very proud to propose.
Okay, now I'll give floor to the first opposition team speaker. Simona, please.
The worst form of inequality is to try to make unequal things equal. Aristotle. Good morning, I am Simona and I am the first speaker of the opposition team. So to start my speech, I would like to rebut what the proposition team said, and I would like to start with the definitions. So the definition of feminist movement was equity for women regarding opportunities and regarding possibilities. But in fact, The right definition of feminism is the belief that women have the same rights and possibilities as men. So it is a movement compared to the other sex. It is a movement which compares women and men, and which does not compare only women with other women. So regarding their position in confront with other women. It is a movement which we want to support, but we believe that this is not the right way to support it. This is not the right tool. In fact, we believe that support, economic support in their case, as they said, is not the right choice, because this support is given only to sororities and not to companies of men. So this is not equal, this is not real feminism. This is only giving something to women, but leaving back men. And we are not saying that men should be taken forward, because they are already forward. We are saying that women and men should be taken to the same level, so they should become equal. And that's what feminism is actually. So another point that I would like to rebut is that the proposition team focus on a women-centered environment. And again, I repeat, this is not the right way of understanding feminism, because feminism, I repeat again, is women equal to men, and not women reach higher positions. It is compared to men. So the society that we want to work towards is not a women-centered, and neither a man-centered. It is a society-centered, and this is different from their vision of feminism. So we agree with the fact that the problem of feminism is present, and some countries have started to take action. Maybe not, they have not reached great results yet. Some other countries have not. So we believe that in general we should take a global action, and we should work towards a more equal society, but with the right tools. So we believe that the economic support for sororities, in this case, for example, is not the right tool, because we need to support economically, maybe, or even we should just encourage those movements, but for both women and men. So we believe that yes.
So if you say that men are already advantaged in society, then how do you believe that supporting women would not bring them, therefore, to equality?
We are not saying that we should not support women, but that we should support both women and men to bring them to an equal level. So yes, we should work with women, but we should not take them at a higher level than men. They should be equal. They should be on the same level. So we believe, as I said, that support for only sororities, for only female-centered groups, is not the right tool, because it is against feminism core values, because it enforces gender inequality, and because we need to learn how to coexist. I'll explain the first argument by repeating that feminism is the equality between women and men, so they have the exact same rights and possibilities. In fact, feminism is not the division of the two sexes by supporting only one, but it is it is to unite those sexes against maybe a common goal. We have the example of the suffragettes. No, thank you, I'd like to continue. Between the 1890s and until the 1918, the movement of suffragettes fought for the right to vote for women, because men, of course, had already the right to vote. But in strikes, women and men were fighting for this purpose. They were working together to get to this purpose, to get to this goal. And this is because we have to transform society by having both sexes that work together. So, just a second. And this explains our quote. So, we believe that the worst form of inequality is to try to make unequal things, and that is supporting only one sex and not both sexes, equal. Yes.
Okay, don't you see that men are already on a higher level in society, and supporting this change is the only way to reach the real equality in the society?
Yes, but the way to do so is not following the feminism core values, because this way, this method only supports one sex and not both sexes. So I would like to continue explaining the example of suffragettes, because they, both women and men, I repeat, were fighting against Parliament, because Parliament wanted to divide the sexes, and Parliament didn't want that women were on the same level as men, because they would have had too much influence. They would have had too much power over the Parliament, and so they decided they did not want women to have the vote. At the end, however, women and men fighting together reached the final goal, and they reached in the 1918 the right to vote for women. So at that point, women and men were brought to an equal level. At that point, feminism was the true value. The true value of feminism was respected and reached. So we believe that to work towards a better society, an equal society, we should believe and remember that we're all in this together, as our motto says. And we should, as I said, work together towards better results, towards better society. And so I repeat the three main reasons why we believe that support for only women-centered groups is not the right tool to work towards feminism. So this is because it is against the feminism core values, because it enforces gender inequality, and lastly, because we need to learn how to coexist. Thank you for listening.
So I will start my speech. Oh, sorry. So as second speaker of the proposition team, I would like to first of all start with my rebuttals to what the opposition team has stated from the first speaker. So firstly, they stated that they think it is essentially wrong to try to make unequal things equal. But a question that we might ask ourselves at this point is, are we just supposed to live with that inequality? I mean, are we just supposed to not try to make things equal at all? Because that really does not make any sense, because what we are debating today is whether the feminist movement, which is a social movement which is already fighting for equality, should support certain organizations or not. Another important aspect is that their interpretation of their feminism absolutely excludes the aspect of intersectionality. In fact, as we define intersectional feminism, it is not only the fight for women and men, but it considers within the group of women also those women, for example, that belong to certain racial minorities, or LGBTQ, which are obviously, or religious identities, which obviously are women that compared to the typical white liberal women have less rights and usually have had to fight even in a more exasperated way. So in order for us to actually support the rights of all of these women, we truly believe that the feminist movement should have absolutely no reason to oppose to these organizations which exclude men. Because there's a very important concept that we would like to bring forward, which is, yes, substantially, these organizations are leaving back men. This is true. But the reason why they are doing that is because men in society have already brought themselves forward for centuries to come. In fact, men in society do not need specific movements to bring their rights forward, whereas women do. This is because women clearly in society have not been able to to enunciate themselves enough, have not been able to pronounce their qualities compared to men in certain sectors. For example, we consider the example that the actual motion states, which is that of feminist startups or the networking types of categories. We see that these are types of sectors in the working field which specifically were never catered towards women's interests. Therefore, we understand that if a woman really wants to bring forward her own capabilities, the way that she can actually do this is through being in a women environment. This is something that we firmly believe because something that we have to understand is that if in society men are here and women are here, we cannot focus on something that brings both of them upwards because we see that the disparity remains. Whereas if we are trying to support women specifically, then we actually reach the equality and the equity that we so desperately want. So we understand that it is all about a matter of necessity right now. What does the feminist movement need? As we brought in our second argument, the public image. The feminist movement, purposely because this is a type of topic which could bring forward people who do not agree. They think the feminist movement should not maybe support these organizations. Men might maybe find it discriminating. Well, all of this attention that the feminist movement gains is extremely important. Why, you may ask? Because, dear judges, if the feminist movement is able to have this attention, they will be able to move society and move governments in order to attain more important legislative change for causes that are deeper and more deeper rooted in the system that we live in today. So another factor to consider is if we take into example of Rumor One Zone of Virginia Woolf. It is stated there how women culturally and from also a socio-political point of view have always been considered less than men. But this is typically something that stems from their lack of possibility of education or because they are constantly thrown in men-oriented environments which do not allow them to cultivate their own qualities in an independent way. This is something that the feminist movement, if it is really trying to sustain the values at its core, cannot permit. Another thing that I would like to rebuttal before I go into our arguments is the suffragette example. Because we have to consider the fact that the suffragettes started fighting from outside of the system alone. They did not have any men supporting them. The only moment in which men decided to support them was once they caused enough damage and enough, we can say, fire in the souls of the governments in order to have them interested as well. So we see how this example is not very relevant to this motion, also considering the fact that that type of feminism is very different from the feminism that we have in our modern society. So going into our third argument, which is the argument of backlash. In fact, we have to consider the fact that the feminist movement could actually suffer great, not only economic loss, but also loss of credibility if they were to decide not to support these organizations which strictly exclude men from this environment that they are trying to propose. So obviously, something that we have to consider is the fact that these organizations exist independently from the feminist movement. So it's not like the feminist movement could potentially abolish them, even if they did not really agree fully on those values. The thing that we have to see is, would the public generally approve more of the feminist movement sustaining companies or sustaining businesses which regard women? Or would the public be absolutely distraught at the only idea of a feminist movement not sustaining women at all? This is a question that we have to ask ourselves. And obviously, dear judges, the answer is clear. These organizations are not trying to exclude men because they want to discriminate, because they want to be, they want women to live alone in the world, or nothing as dystopian as that. They are just trying to bring forward those qualities of women which throughout history have had difficulty affirming themselves. And this is a very effective way, because if the feminist movement were to not support these organizations, what would they be creating? The first subpoint, hostility. By creating this hostility, they are making these organizations turn against them. And the general public might as well become divided in two. Because they say, should we support an organization which defends women, or should we sustain a movement which defends women? Yes?
If you said that these movements exist besides the feminist movement, then why should the public opinion change regarding the feminist movement, supporting or not?
Because let us get something very clear across. If the feminist movement were to decide to support these organizations, they would be substantially promoting the ideals of these organizations as their own, because there is already a link, which is that of supporting the rights of women. If they were to not sustain these organizations, it would cause, yes, still a change in society, but not the type of positive change that the feminist movement so desperately wants. It would be causing a negative change, because society would be realizing that maybe in the end, feminism is not actually supporting those same values that they sustain, that they support. The second point is a loss of credibility, because the feminist values are so perfectly represented by these organizations. And if they were to decide, as I stated before, not to sustain them, it would cause incredible backfiring. It would cause for the feminist movement to lose credibility and to be seen as an imposter in society. Because how could you go against these organizations which are created by women themselves? And how can you, as a movement, sustain that you are still defending women when you are rejecting these organizations the possibility of being approved? So the last question that the feminist movement must actually ask themselves is, if we want to try to sustain an ideal possibility where women and men can both be brought up together contemporarily, even though, as I said before, men are here and women are here in society, or if they should actually focus on the pragmatic and efficient aspect of sustaining women in a way that other men could not understand. Thank you.
Okay, let's start.
Good morning, I'm Erika Gallo, the second speaker of the opposition team. First of all, I'd like to reaffirm that we strongly believe that the feminist movement should not support organizations that explicitly exclude men. But before starting to explain our last two arguments of our team line, that I'd like to remind that we don't support this because it's against the feminism core values, it enforces gender inequality, and we need to learn how to coexist. But before starting to explain our last two arguments, I'd like to rebut what the proposition team has said. First of all, I'd like to explain again our quote. And they said that it's wrong saying that we should not, that the worst thing to do is to of inequality is to make unequal things equal. But actually, this is what right, because masquerading feminism as something that supports actually organizations that do not bring on the same level both genders, but actually exclude a part of the society, is not what feminism stands for. Feminism stands for one second, please. Feminism stands for equality of both women and men. And by supporting organizations that explicitly exclude men, we do not do this, actually go against this. And they also said that by doing this we are not leaving back men. But the point is that excluding men from explicitly from organization and supporting this is actually leaving not back only men, but the entire society, because we are dividing the society, and this is not what we want. What we want is actually to bring the society on the same level. If we divide the society, we are not doing this. We are going against this. I'd like to take the video.
Don't you see that in our society, women are the ones that have been left behind for centuries, and that with our motion, with what the proposition is supporting, we would actually be reaching the equality that you're so desperately advocating for?
Of course, equality is what we want, but by supporting organizations that explicitly exclude men, we won't bring actually any positive change. Actually, we would just dividing the sexes, and by dividing the sexes, we're not reaching equality, but what we want is equality. So, for example, they would support sororities, but by supporting, for example, economically sororities, we wouldn't have any actual impact on the society, because they said that the problem is, for example, that women don't have high positions in workplaces. But by, for example, supporting sororities, this problem is not solved. So by supporting organizations that explicitly exclude men, we won't actually doing anything positive for our society. We would actually remain in the problem that these two genders are not on the same level. And they also said that suffragettes are not a good example to support our team line, but actually it is, because only once women and men work together, only at that point they were able to reach their purpose, which was to reach equality in the vote. And we also think that there is a difference between supporting women and supporting those organizations who exclude men. It's a completely different thing, because we can both supporting women, but at the same time not supporting organization that goes against feminism itself. But now I'm going to explain our last two arguments. First of all, this support actually enforces the gender inequality. But why is that? Well, because we need to stay united, not divided, to actually solve the problem of inequality. Division is always something wrong. It's always something that brings something negative. And in fact, division has always been used as a tool to divide populations, to divide people. But let's take an example. The famous quote actually from Caesar, divide et impera. He used division to divide populations in order to control them better. And this proves how division actually brings always something negative, and it's always been like this, and also now we do the same. And division doesn't make people stronger, but only weaker and divided. And just a second. And in order to solve the problem, we need to stay united. Yes, thank you.
Can't you see that society is already divided, and only by actually having a change, the proposition change, we would actually get to an equality?
Absolutely not, because you're supporting this division by, for example, supporting organizations that explicitly exclude men. That is division, and you are supporting it. So you're not you're not supporting feminism values. And our last argument is we need to learn to coexist. Supporting these organizations, as I said, by supporting them, we're separated. And this means that we don't have the chance to understand each other, to collaborate. And of course, this doesn't make understand each other's differences. And how can we fight differences if we don't know them, if we don't see the problem with our own eyes? And the only way to actually solve this problem is to cooperate with each other. Well, let's take an example in which women and men cooperated with each other. For example, Pierre and Marie Curie. They were husband and wife who cooperated with each other, and thanks to this cooperation, they discovered very important things, to the point that they also won a Nobel in 1903 for physics. And only by working together, they could reach such amazing results. So actually this proves how only supporting organizations that exclude men is not actually helping women, is not actually helping society in general, because it's dividing it. And that's exactly why we don't stand by this motion. And the three main reasons are that it's against the feminism core values, it enforces gender inequality, and we need to learn how to coexist. Thank you.
Sandra, please.
Okay, I would like to structure my speech into central points of discussions, because we have obtained two main central points of discussions. There are efficiency and time factor and image. So I would like to discuss about the first one, that is efficiency, in which we'd like to propose the fact that our team has brought a more efficient model than the opposition, and for this fact, our model of feminism is better than the other. So the first time, I would like to say that our feminist movement moves the society forward in order to change and create a new public image. So feminism is a movement that needs a public image and communication, and even if it implies the hate of man, it means communication and visibility. And this is what feminism needs. And that means a fight for rights and a new society, because even if something is hated, however, is discussed. And for this reason, we support this idea. Then I would like to say that as a man, I like to say that men are not in the same position of women, because when we born, at the same time that we were born, we all have different rights from women, and the society considers us in a different way. And for this reason, men were born in a society that support them, and in which they haven't struggled to succeed. So women, conversely, on the other hand, are more conscious of themselves, and for this reason, they need a different kind of feminism, because we can't comprehend the fact that the women have struggled to survive. Okay.
Are you aware that the value of feminism is only one, and it is equality?
Yeah, the right is equality, but the way in which we can obtain equality is different. Our house sustains the fact that in order to obtain equality, we have to make a phase of feminism in which we develop a different kind of feminism that is based on new cooperation and the fact that the feminist movement could support this organization only created by women. So then I would like to say that we are building possibility and way of revenging for the women's side. So then I would like then to say that feminism is equal opportunity, as the other team said, and for this reason, and we are supporting this idea, but to do that we need this kind of feminism in order to be respected and build a new society. And if you are supporting this idea, dear judges, you are supporting the future of feminism and the real equality in our world. So the society is actually man-centered, and we don't want a society women-centered, but with our feminism we are proposing the right phase in order to develop a new society. Because if we are from an upper level, we need women to be in a certain level that it is not ours. So to do that, we don't have the same levels, and so women shouldn't struggle to do that. And we don't struggle to do that, while women, conversely, can struggle to do that. And they don't need our position, because we are from a different side from them. So we have a different kind of role in the society, and for this kind of role, the society gave us this role that women don't have. So in order to do that, women should support this new feminist movement. So I would like to discuss about the time factor and image. So the organization that we are talking about, however, exist, but they need to be supported, because these organizations have the right feminism in it, because they can develop a different thought and they can develop a new way in order to revenge themselves in our society that is man-based. So for this reason, I would like to say that we are focused on the goals of this motion, and to achieve equality, we are taking a new idea of feminism, and to develop it in order to finally have equality, we need this feminism. So it is inevitable for the feminist movement to support this organization for its unconscious values that does not mean hating men, but creating a new society. And in order to do that, we have to support this idea. So we are creating the right field to develop then new values in the future. So that's time factor, because we are developing a new feminism. Then for the suffragette example, the suffragettes are not the right example, because they were from the past, they were from a different kind of feminism that support a different political idea about the right of voting, while our feminism is different because it's cultural. So we have to change the real culture of our places and the real idea behind, the real idea behind feminism. So our aim is to create a new society that is that's a different feminist thought than the suffragettes, because the suffragettes had to support the right of voting, while we are supporting the real shift of feminism that will create the real equality in our society.
Eli,
So, okay, go on.
are you aware that the value they stood for is the same as now?
No, the values are the same, but we have to characterize them, because the society is not the same. While in the past they had a different society, so they had different needs, and for this reason they were different, obviously, in their actions. While our society is more political, is different because we have to change the society itself and not just the political case. So in order to do that, we need this kind of feminism. Then I would like to say that what would happen if maybe women could create an association in which that is structured just with women, and the feminist movement won't support it. It's different for women because women won't be supported in their action, and for this reason they won't feel as motivated as they were supported. So for this reason, the feminist movement should really support this idea, because this idea is based on the organization, and the organization are based on the new feminist thought. And the new feminist thought has as its goal the right of having the equity in the society. Because we support the idea of equity, but we support the idea of the time factor, because the time factor image should change. And for all this reason, you have said that we are creating sexes, we are dividing sexes, but sexes are already divided, and are divided because the sort of feminism of the last 20 years haven't obtained the right choices and the right goals that they would like to obtain. So for this reason, suffragettes are a different example, and the new way in which we can obtain these goals is just with our model. So our model represents the real change of feminism, because sex won't be divided anymore. It's just a phase in which women won't need men because they are autosufficient, and in order to do that, we need this feminism. So the word feminism should change, and our aim is to build a new kind of feminism that is not based on just on equality without taking into account the way in which we can obtain equality, but it is based on the way in which we are obtaining equality, that is by supporting the organization composed by women. And it is for this reason that I'm so proud to propose.
Please.
Good morning, I'm Karina Sander, I'm the third speaker of the opposition team. So first, I'd like to rebut what the third speaker of the proposition team just told us. So first, I'd like to confute their model, which is changing the definition of feminism. Well, that is literally changing what's feminism. That is not feminism at all. Then they said that there's a new definition of feminism, but I'd like to say and repeat to them that feminism is the belief that women should have the same rights and opportunities as men. And for same, we are specifying exactly like each other, because feminism is about this, is about having equal rights, equal opportunities, and it's not about changing the definitions because the society is the way it is. And that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about next, because they said that our suffragette example isn't right. Well, because the third speaker of the proposition team said because the society is not the same because they changed. The society changed thanks to women. What if in 1918, thanks to the suffragettes movement for women to get the right to vote, they didn't get that? What if we still now couldn't have the right to vote? So the society did change, but it changed also thanks to us women and to the women that fought for us.
Are you so substantiating the fact that, supporting the fact that actually there is equity and equality between men and women because we have changed?
I'm not saying this. I'm saying that we had to start somewhere. And I think that for women to get the right to vote, that's a great start. And it only happened in 1918, and we have time to do that and continue to fight for having equal rights and opportunities. So that's why we think that feminism movements should not support these organizations. Should not support these organizations because they would only increase this gap between women and men. And also, they said, the third speaker of the proposition team said that it's not hating men, but it's creating a new example. How is excluding men not being hating men? We need to understand that feminism, it's about supporting both men and women. It's not only about supporting only men or only women, because otherwise that's not feminism.
Don't you think that understanding these organizations as a way of hating men is incredibly sexist?
Yes, but the thing is that feminism is about supporting both women and men, because it's about having equal rights and opportunities. It's not about leaving one aside and just hoping that the other can get the right. That's not how it works. So they also said the fact that the suffragettes is an old example. Well, we think it's not an old example. And it also states us the fact that it actually helped us, and it's a great example. Also because women, they said that the suffragettes came from outside of the society and alone. Were actually, they weren't alone because there were male supporting women. In fact, there are many other. There are some novels, books that wrote by men that also stated that men became the tyranny of the society and of women because men was getting all the power. So it's not about men just being hated. Then they said that the suffragette wasn't a good example because it wasn't a real shift. Well, I think that's exactly what we think, because having the vote, that's a great shift, and we think that the suffragettes example was spot on. Then I'd like to rebut what the first speaker said. She said that they have to cut out roles out of men, and that's exactly what this exactly goes out of their first point of inclusivity. How do you inclusive? No, thank you. How is this inclusive if you cut out the roles that also men could have? We're not stating that feminism is what feminism is about only supporting women, and that's exactly what goes on to your first point. Then they said that women should have should have their roles cut out from men because in this way they get their own businesses. But that's exactly comparing men and women. And feminism, it's not about comparing, it's about having equality between them. It's not about one has more flaws, no thank you, and the other has less. Then we need to support this, and they have to be on the same level. And we don't need a women-centered society because, again, we believe in equity.
TOI. Are you aware that the only way to actually reach equity that you want is to bring women to the same level as men, and the women are not on the same level as men now?
Yes, of course, but it's not about hating men to get this, because by doing what you say, you're just dividing the gap even more. We need to work into an equal society, not an only gendered society. Otherwise, it would just become the vice versa situation that we're having. It's not the right medium. Then the second speaker said that by doing what we say, we're not trying to make things equal at all. But how is it to make things equal by supporting organizations that explicitly exclude men only because they're men? It's not what feminism is about, because feminism just wants equity. We need to be on the same level, and I think that's what the proposition team didn't understand about feminism. It's not like they said also. The second speaker of the proposition team said, only by women striking they gain attention. And that's where we're, again, displaying to you the suffragettes example, because suffragettes gained the right to vote by women and men striking. Also, they said that disparity remains if we do what we believe in. But actually, it doesn't. It's only just divide the gap even more because you're hating one gender. And they said also that this would increase hostility, but we think the opposite, because this would only divide even more the current situation. So by explicitly excluding men, we're going against the definition of feminism, which is gaining the same rights and opportunities as men. So I'd like to recap my speech by telling why we are the feminism movement should support organizations that explicitly exclude men, because they are against feminism core values, it enforces gender equality, and because we need to learn how to coexist all together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning again. So now I'm going to do the reply speech, and in particular I'm going to explain the 2 points of view of the 2 teams and how they conflicted with each other. I would like to start by saying that the proposition team stated that their model was the right model to achieve feminism because they were supporting women to bring them on the same level as men. However, we show to you that this is not the right tool, this is not the right medium to do so and to reach feminism, because it is the wrong path, because we would be following the wrong road to the right value, because feminism is of course the right value and the value that we all want to reach to get a better society. But We believe that with supporting only female organizations, we are only following the wrong road, the wrong path. So instead, we should maybe support both mediums, because men and women, as the definition of feminism says, should have the same opportunities and rights. So, still about feminism, we believe that this movement is only one unique value, and that value, to obtain it, the proposition team stated that we should develop a new feminism. So should we develop a new value? Should we develop a new form of equality? Well, no, absolutely. We should develop the form of equality that we have nowadays with the right mediums to get to the right value, so to the right equality. Lastly, another point of clash that was really relevant in this debate is the method which would have cleared or not the division between the two sexes. Well, the proposition team stated that this division, by supporting groups that only include women, so that explicitly divide women from men, is the right way to achieve equality, and it is the right way to unite the society, while we believe that this division would only be increased and it would only be worsened in the society. So we would not be reaching the true value of equality that we all need in the society. By maintaining this division, and so by following the method of the proposition team, we would only be controlled maybe by governments. We would only be weaker because divided, as I said. So the question that I want to propose you is this: are we revolutionizing? Are we willing to revolutionize society or the value of feminism? So do we want to change the value of equality? We believe that we should revolutionize the society. We should focus on the society, because we want to reach a society-centered community, society-centered environment. So we should not work towards a women-centered environment or a man-centered, but a society-centered, in order to reach that equality that we all need in our daily lives. Thank you.
So we live in a world where clearly there is a need in society, and that need is the need for equality. The main point of discussion in this debate today has clearly been on how should the feminist movement fight in order to obtain this change? How should the feminist movement approach these organizations in order to reach its goals? Well, we, as a proposition team, are presenting to you a world where there is a true representation of all feminist values, and we must remember intersectional feminism values. We see that this is the way to reach true equality, because the values that feminism represents, which are those of equality, are clearly reached by organizations which, I would like to restate, do not explicitly hate men. They are simply focusing on women. And by interpreting these organizations as a way to hate men, we are actually interpreting this entire movement as something extremely sexist. These organizations are made in order to bring women forward, because for centuries they were set back and submissed by men themselves. We are also bringing attention to the feminist movements in order to obtain bigger change for causes which are much more severe and which regard governments or political legislative change. If the feminist movement is able to obtain this attention from doing something which does not actually bring legislative change, but moves society in a certain way, then feminism is able to achieve its goals. The third thing that we are bringing for the feminist movement is avoiding backlash. In fact, we have to consider, as I stated in my second speech, the fact that if the feminist movement were to not approve of these organizations openly, they would be stating that they are against things that women do. They are against organizations that women bring forward in order to prove that they are enough. They do not need men in order to prosper, and they can be good on their own. This is what they are trying to deny. And how can we possibly believe that this is feminist? The opposition team is instead presenting a world where we are sustaining these ideals of equality, of trying to bring forward both men and women, but it is not really explained to us how denying these organizations would actually bring women forward. If anything, we are denying those women the right of support, which is something that they clearly need since they are disregarded in society today. They are bringing, again, backlash for the feminist movement because it will cause a negative public image, not only on behalf of the organizations themselves, but on behalf of the entire world. Just imagine the headlines. Feminist movement says they are against organizations which bring forward women. I mean, that just sounds dystopian. And again, the most important thing is they are not bringing any real change. They are not providing us with any change in order for the feminist movements to reach this equality, because there is not going to be any attention, because there's not going to be any positive public image. Therefore, there is something very important to consider, which is that the sexes are already divided. Therefore, we cannot bring forward an ideal which pragmatically has no application. The opposition team is not considering these organizations in the way that they were intended to work. Because again, they were not intended in order to create discrimination and create division. Because the real question that we must ask ourselves is, are men really affected? Men being excluded from these organizations really do not lose anything. Because in society, they already have their place. They already have areas in the work sector where they have prospered for years and centuries. Women instead have not. And that is why there is a strict need for feminist movements to approve of these organizations. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, congratulations.